JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Hey, thanks for watching. This one's especially for the hardworking Americans out there that are self-employed, independent contractors, sole proprietors, the single member LLC that files a Schedule C falls into this. And really what it comes down to is that if you filed a Schedule C, you're involved in what I'm getting ready to talk about. So with this being said, we got the SBA application for forgiveness came out. I'm going to say right now, version 1 came out May 15th. I'm sure there'll be some additional versions. When I went through it a little more carefully, it does appear on this application that it does address the self-employed. Very little, but I think it's because it's going to be easier for those that got the PPP as a self-employed individual. Now, I am talking about just those that have a net Schedule C on line 31. Now, if you're one of those wonderful individuals that you have a Schedule C and you have employees, then you've got two calculations. And that would be you're first going to calculate, in essence, your Schedule C forgiveness based on your line 31 divided by 52 times 8, and then you'll need to look at your employees, your W-2 employees that you're reporting on your Schedule C, and then you really should consider being an S-Corp as you move forward, because if you've got employees, you are definitely a candidate to file a different way for tax purposes, but I'll digress. You really should be looking at being an S-Corp. But with that being said, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to a video. Sorry to say, I'm going to put a quick link to a video on why you should be an S-Corp. But anyways, it looks like you're going to take the amount that's considered, self-employment compensation to you related to PPP. I didn't see it through the application, but we know from the SBA guidelines that came out April 14th that your compensation as the owner, as the self-employed individual, is Schedule C line 31 divided by 52 weeks times 8. And that would be in essence what you would put down as owner self-employed compensation. I'm not seeing anywhere in here that is specific, but we know that that's going to be the case. I do see a reference to something on April 14th, 2020, which makes me feel confident that when you're looking at the application, basically you're going to take your line 31 divided by 52 times 8, and that's your component of payroll costs. And again, this is not if you have employees and you're filing a Schedule C. So if you're like, what does that mean, JJ? Then you probably don't have employees on your Schedule C. But with that being said, then it's basically taking that amount and you're adding into it the mortgage interest payments. I'm reading here, the rent and lease payments and your utility payments. Boom. And then you run through the rest of the calculations. So it does appear that this is going to apply to both the employers and the self-employed. One of the things to do is I set up a special page on my website, jjthecpahelp.com. Promise there's no booby traps there, that you don't have to enter in an email address or anything, and then I pretend to give you something for free to sell you something later. It's just a free website, jjthecpahelp.com. I put a link there, and I set up a special page on that today that's the self-employed PPP forgiveness page. So it just has that on there. And what I have on there is a list that comes from the SBA guidelines on April 14th. And on that page, you'll actually see I put a link to the SBA guidelines if you just want to read that directly yourself. And then I just did a summary that is directly from the SBA guidelines on 4/14. So let me just break this down real quick. What came out Friday, May 15th, is the application for forgiveness of the PPP loan. When I'm referencing here this April 14th, these are the guidelines that the SBA put out, and it had a ton related to the self-employed. So these are the two things that we're working with, and on that application for May 15th, it is in essence referencing this April 14th guideline. And what you want to look at is if you go to my website and you click on what I've got listed here for you, and it is called the self-employed PPP forgiveness list and not. But on that, like I said, I put together a summary for you, but check this out. So a couple of interesting things reading here, that the business mortgage obligation on real or personal property, this is what's going to be interesting. I feel like it'd be good to have a little more information, because I've been asked quite a bit, well, like, does that include it on my house? You know, I'm officing in my house. I don't see that, because it's saying business interest payments in the business, which would be in the name of the business. It says business mortgage interest obligation on real or personal property. But so what's so unusual though is that when you're a sole proprietor, self-employed, you know, you don't have a separate business, so to speak. I mean, you might have an EIN, but the purpose of Schedule C, unless you're a single member LLC, but the purpose of Schedule C is just that you have a business, but it's not separate from you. So typically you're not going to have things titled separately from you. So I don't want to get you excited in thinking that maybe there's going to be a way to deduct part of your mortgage interest on your home. I'm just making comment that I'm hoping that we get some more clarification related to this. So for now, I would just say, based on the guidelines here, that if you have an asset specifically and only used for business, if it's in the business name, you know, if you have a separate EIN or an LLC, and you're filing on a Schedule C. But then check this out. Interest on an auto loan for vehicle that you use or perform for business. So this isn't in the business name. It's saying interest on an auto loan for a vehicle you use for business. Interesting. I'm sure there's going to be more clarification, because typically it wouldn't just be 100% of that interest on anything else in the world. It would be based on your business use, but guidelines just simply state interest on auto loan for vehicle used in the business. It's saying business rent payments, business utility payments, gas while you're driving your vehicle for business. So rent payments and utility payments, that's all it says. It doesn't say, you know, anything further as in, well, is that rent to yourself? Is that home office? Is that utility in your home? But here's the thing, in my opinion, I don't think we should count on any of that as a deduction. Hey, listen, I hope I'm wrong on it, but I don't think it's going to count utilities at the house or interest on the house, because that's just normally not included in anything else. So I know we've got a kind of unusual animal that we're dealing with here, meaning PPP. So right now, my opinion is that it doesn't include home mortgage, the home utilities, the home phone, or the home internet. And then based on the guidelines, it doesn't include your health insurance premiums as a self-employed or your self-employed retirement plans. And it does not include your HSA, your IRA. If you put into a simple 401k, it doesn't include your mileage or your supplies, or people or businesses that you pay 1099. So the reason I say all that is go to my website. Right there, you'll see a link to the self-employed PPP forgiveness. And I've got the guidelines there for you. I've got the application there for you. And then I also have this list that came directly from the guidelines. So I'll have more videos coming out, kind of walking through this. But really, in a nutshell, this application, I think, is going to come down to this for the self-employed. Line 31 of your Schedule C 2019, because that's what's to be used, divided by 52 times 8. That's your payroll cost, if you will. And then these things that are going to account for the utilities and the rent and the interest. So I'm assuming, again, that we're going to get more guidelines on this. You know, I don't think anybody would be into, couldn't even be anybody that's into their full or past their full 8 weeks. So there's going to definitely be more coming out related to this. So hopefully this helps for my wonderful friends that are self-employed. In fact, I have a Schedule C. I've got several businesses, and one of them I report on Schedule C. I'm required to, so not everybody can be an S Corp with everything that they're doing, but the line of business that I'm in, I am not able to run it through a business. It has to be on a Schedule C. But nonetheless, so what I want you to do is go to jjthecpahelp.com and you can find these things. I'll also put that link in there that you can see like, well, hey, should I be an S Corp? Now, there's not any effect on PPP. It's really nothing that would go into play for related to 19. But, you know, should you be an S Corp might be something to consider. So, hey, listen, I'd love it if you would subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm glad we have the application. Maybe we can start getting more closure and maybe reducing down everybody's stress on getting this all figured out. And then, hey, I'll just say this. If you haven't gotten your PPP money as of today, okay, there's still money out there. Get with the small banks, get with the small credit unions, and get in there and get that application, because in essence, at a minimum, you take your line 31 divided by 52 times 8. That's just an automatic forgiveness for you. So if you're able to get $10,000, then basically, you know, if you got a PPP loan of 10K, you know, a good portion of that, almost 3/4, is going to be in essence forgiven because of the automaticness to it. So anyways, again, this was all for the self-employed. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me.